Good afternoon, I'm John Cotters and welcome to ComSpark 2019. My guest today is James McIntyre, CIO of YMCA in Cincinnati. And James, we're not going to talk about technology today, we're going to talk about careers.
Okay.
CIOs are faced with challenges of maintaining the momentum of their career as technology changes so very rapidly. And why don't we start off by, if you could tell me a challenge that you face in your career today?
I guess the challenge that I'm facing is probably how to evolve as a CIO, because it used to be all about sort of the technology, where I'm sort of saying, do I choose this particular piece of technology or that particular piece? And it was all about sort of making sure you made the right choice on the right computer, the right network and so on. Whereas now I'm finding that everything's just all about the information. So it used to be information technology and the emphasis was on the technology. Now the emphasis is just on the information. And so it's basically making sure that the right people get the right information in their hands at the right time. And so that's a very, very difficult thing when there are older systems in play. We've got all of this technological debt that we're trying to get rid of. And so there's part of it is doing that, but then I'm being pulled in many other directions. So I'm also being pulled in the direction of being an innovator. And so when I'm trying to keep the machine running, I can't make any mistakes, don't take any chances. But with innovation, I have to make something really quick, and I'll fail fast and fail forward, and you have to change your hats at different times. So I think that trying to determine what my role is at any given moment as the CIO is probably the greatest challenge.
I see. Well, one of the things that we're also talking about is the challenge that CIOs have in communicating to the very diverse people that they report to. You have peers in the organization, you have probably a board of directors and a C-suite that you're responsible for. How do you step out of the role of being a technologist and talk to those people in ways that they don't find intimidating and don't pigeonhole you as simply a technology guy?
That's also a very tough one, and I've tried to work on that throughout my entire career. I started out at Price probably around about 30 years ago in technology, and at that time I used to just use all of the gobbledygook and all of the words, and then over time I started slowly realizing that I needed to make things a little bit simpler and use less jargon throughout the time. And so a lot of the times these days, what I'll do is I will have a conversation and I'll try and find out what their business need is. And I think that if we keep it to business need, that really helps a lot. So an obvious one is with the CFO, I need to talk about ROI and how it makes sense. With the CEO who really likes a lot of innovation, I have to talk about how this is either helping us get rid of some technology debt so that we can spend more time on innovation, or how this thing itself is innovative. And so a lot of it is literally situation-based conversations where what you have to do is determine how the person wants to hear the information and give it to them in the best way possible. And also using a lot of analogies, I find that helps with regards to a lot of complex technical issues.
I see. And I guess one other question I'd like to ask is, quite often in careers, we owe our success to a mentor that's helped us out. Can you tell me about a favorite person or leader or mentor that's been meaningful part of your career and what they perhaps did to help you?
Yeah, that's great. I actually, one of the mentors I had at Pricewaterhouse I met him in 1996 and stayed working with him till 2004 when he retired. And I'd kept in touch with him all of the time. He's always been a reference for me, and he's just had a phenomenal impact on my life. He was in charge of the Washington National Tax Practice for PricewaterhouseCoopers, and what he did was he taught me about professionalism, how to be able to have executive presence, and he gave me a lot of guidance along the way. So whenever I did a presentation, he would always be there and say, hey, this is great. He'd hit the highlights and he'd say you could improve on these points. And so we had open honest, candid conversations. And I also remember that there were many times he invited me back to his house and we'd share a bottle of wine and we would just chat about life and where we're heading in different things and that. And even when I went through a very painful divorce back in 2001, he was there coaching me through how to maintain professional behavior at work and how not to let things get me down and that. And he's just been a really, really great coach. He's influenced me in many, many, many positive ways.
James, as we've talked about, as we've talked to CIOs throughout the conference, one of the things that's come up a number of times is the difficulty in hiring people into the organization and keeping them motivated, keeping them happy. Now, that's an important part of your career as a CIO. How do you deal with that, especially in a nonprofit environment where you're competing with the private sector?
That is a very tough one these days. So what happens is there's no way we can compete financially with the folks. And even if we do, we have to make sure that the person is the right fit. So the person has to be a good cultural fit. Since we are a not-for-profit and a Christian-based not-for-profit, we have to make sure that the person has a good cultural fit. And that's probably more important than their technical skills because we can train them on those. So one thing that we've been able to do quite successfully is to find some people who've already worked at the YMCA for a long time. There's a guy who'd worked there for about 10 years and he knew all of the systems and how they worked. And so we made him in charge of all of those basically pieces of software and how to train other people to use them. And so that was a really, really sweet spot for him. And so that worked out very well. Another thing that we've done quite successfully is we use interns. So we get an intern and so as an example, over the next 2 to 3 years, we really need a person who's a systems administrator. But then after that, we really don't need them anymore. So what we're looking for is interns who can do systems administration and they will carry the weight and they're here for 30 weeks and then gone. And so you don't have to hire someone, retrain them or fire anyone and that. And so that way, using interns to supplement the skill sets that we need, that's worked out very effectively, particularly for cost, because we have like a shoestring budget being a not-for-profit.
I see. Well, James, following up again in terms of your career, many of us tend to make a misstep someplace along the way. Is there a particular instance where you wish you had an opportunity to do something over again?
I don't know. I guess I've probably been fairly happy with the decisions I've made. I guess the toughest choice that I'd ever made was leaving PricewaterhouseCoopers. I absolutely just loved working for them. And I had to leave there to move back to Cincinnati because my family was back here and my daughter was in high school and needed more face time. But I guess if I could have found some way to continue working for them while being back here, I would have loved to do that. But it's just that Washington, D.C. was the center for technology. So yeah, I guess I really would have loved if I could have continued working with them and found some way to make it work as a technologist at Pricewaterhouse and just continued there.
Good. Well, James, thank you. This has been very insightful, and but thank you very much. And thank you for listening to our interview. And if you'd like to get further information, contact us at ComSpark.tech. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sean.
Okay, thank you.